Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the place where we learn about new words and phrases that are really just old words and phrases given new meanings. Because that's exciting, isn't it? And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday, tantalizing Thursday. That's the first T word that came to mind. Anyway, yes, we are back once again, all set and ready to get new information drilled into our minds. Are you excited? I'm excited. And who is excited with me? Well, that would be Somnamnation, hello. Jaeger Pony, hello. Functional, hello. Black Belt for Christ, hello. That one servant of Satania, hello. Viror of Ashmedai, hello. Thrashy, hello. Deck Wow, hello. Graph Spree, hello. Check Your Logic, hello. Keeverdam, hello. Zaubla, hello. And Chat Jump, because of course it did. Michael Garrick, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello. Chicago Mike, hello. Drew W, hello. John Miller, hello. Ecto Merc, hello. Green Death, hello. Subpar Genitalia, hello. Cryptic, hello. Anna Clark, hello. Frosted Glass, hello. Pink Hollow, the Driving Ape Man, hello. And thank you for the Dog Cat Fox. We are number one. We are number one. Fernanda, hello. Rudicus Prime, hello. You're a ridiculous lunatic, hello. Nothing for you here, hello. Non-Vitae Rex, hello. Puddock, hello. Lurking Gopher, hello. The gayest person on YouTube, hello. Holy cats. And earlier, if I'm not mistaken, yes, Merle Davis, hello, who said, hey, Scribelight, I normally can't jump in the chat because I'm on my phone, but I just got home, so hello and have a good show. Thank you, Merle. And let's see, gayest person on YouTube, again, thank you. One, please. Well, you got your one. I don't know if you're going to be thankful for it by the end of it, but we'll find out together. Maniac Man 2030, hello. Richo 8181, hello. All right, so what's on the docket today? Well, truth be told, I had a couple other TEDx's lined up, but I may still do them. They just didn't strike me as exciting looking because they're like those Zoom conversation things and somebody sitting in their office and talking. And I guess it's technically a TEDx and all that, and I might do it on Saturday or something. But anyway, I was just kind of like, I need something a bit more cinematic. And lo and behold, in my library of collected TEDx's, I found this one that I hadn't looked at yet, but it struck me as I have to look at it because after our previous episode where we were told that colonization of a classroom revolves around the arrangement of desks and the skin color of the teacher, I am dying to know what it means to decolonize cinema. And that is the, at least in part, of the official title of today's presentation, Why It's Time to Decolonize Cinema. What does that mean? I don't know. I can make some guesses, but I don't know. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. And always, as always, guys, be sure to have your TEDx bingo card ready. A link is in the description. I have high hopes for this one. Well, I mean, high hopes in relative terms to a TEDx. That maybe we'll hit a bingo. So be sure to have your bingo cards ready. As always, at the end of the stream, I will review my bingo card selections and take input from you guys on either arguments for or against such selections. But with that, I'm going to start the video sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear this, and if so, we will proceed.
So let's start with a bit of trivia.
Oh boy, trivia, especially if it's movie trivia. I love trivia. You guys know that I love movies, right? That's also why this kind of jumped out at me, because I need to know what's wrong with the movies that needs to be fixed. All right, Jaeger Pony says, Thunderbirds are go. Are there marionettes here too? All right. Trivia. All right. No cheating, guys. I haven't seen this, so don't tell me.
I'm going to give you a line from a movie.
Okay.
And I want you to name the film.
London, UK 2019. Okay. Line from the movie, Name the film. Oh, I love this. All right, let's go.
I may be a woman, Sir William, but if I choose, I have the heart of a man.
Cannibal the Musical. No? Oh. Braveheart. Is it Braveheart? I was kidding about the first one. I'll say Braveheart. You guys think Braveheart? I've got at least one Braveheart in there. I've got Elizabeth, Knight's Tale. Okay, let's find out.
Anyone? Not Victoria. Someone got it. The film is Elizabeth.
Oh, that would be Michael Garrick. Michael Garrick. Yay, Michael. Everybody give Michael a round of applause. Michael got it. All right. I think I've seen Elizabeth once, long ago. So yeah, not exactly in my wheelhouse. But yay, Michael Garrick.
A film directed by my good friend, Shekhar Kapoor.
Oh, name dropping, are we?
Who I met through our work in the film industry. Starring Cate Blanchett, who I have absolutely never met. But I've worshipped since this 1998 film.
You worship Cate Blanchett? Okay, that sounds like an interesting church. And church in association with Queen Elizabeth and all. Never mind.
Kate's performance in Elizabeth was a masterclass in possibility for me.
It was also a film that was wildly historically inaccurate, but we're not going to dwell on that either, are we?
The film tells a story of one of the world's most formidable rulers.
A telling of the story, yes. Thank you, Drew W. White people stop playing pharaohs. Oh, you think that's where this is going? Oh, okay. I wonder if she'll talk about when John Wayne played Genghis Khan. You ever hear about that? John Wayne playing Genghis Khan? Look it up. It actually happened.
Queen Elizabeth I.
Yes.
As she navigated a maze of political intrigue, all surrounded by a court of men, questioning her every move.
And yet somehow she was still queen. And there were a lot of queens in England. How did women ever achieve such a thing? I don't know.
If you haven't seen it, some of you have, but if you haven't seen it, I'm not saying run home, put on a pair of pajamas and order in some Chinese and prepare for your world to be rocked.
I didn't get any notion that you were even implying such a thing previously. You really like that movie. You really like the actress. So what?
But I kind of am.
Okay, all right. Like I say, you really like the movie. You really like the actress. Great.
You see, this film is not only a brilliant historical drama.
Okay, yes, it is a historical drama. It is a period drama. It's true. I just hope you don't say it's historically accurate, because there's a lot that isn't. Thank you, Cryptic. Chinese, that's racist. You think so? All right, well, I'll keep that in mind in case we don't have a square to circle later on. I mean, you are the expert.
But a testament to a powerful fact.
Yes.
That much of England's golden age was architected by a woman.
Yeah, she did it all by herself, you know. The golden age was entirely or mostly her. There wasn't anybody else who helped architect or construct where things were at. Not Walsingham. Walsingham? Is that how you say his last name? Walsingham? Anyway, her spy master. Yeah, he had nothing to do with the outcome of many of the situations Elizabeth found herself embroiled in. Okay.
I came to this film in college, and for more nights than I want to admit, I watched and rewatched this film. Weekends and keg parties be damned.
That doesn't sound healthy. And I mean, I've seen The Hunt for Red October at least 24 times, so that's saying something coming from me.
There I was. I was a history major specializing in foreign policy.
And you were watching Elizabeth? I mean, if you like the movie, fine. Please don't tell me you were using it as a historical reference. Please don't.
Eking it out in the cold tundra of upstate New York.
Mm.
In that climate, movies became my primary pastime, and Elizabeth was my everything.
You know, it's not often that I make such a comment, but it's so striking here. I can't remember the last time I saw a TEDx where the speaker referred so frequently to their note cards. I mean, I recall that one of the recent ones, somebody had note cards, but I don't know. It's not a criticism per se. It's just something that I noticed. That's all.
The gallantry, suspense, and of course her complexity, power, and influence.
Yeah.
All combined to create this enthralling Time's Up Before Time's Up masterpiece.
Oh, Time's Up Before Time's Up masterpiece. A liberties taken portrayal of Queen Elizabeth. Again, if you like it and you find the character as portrayed interesting and on, but if you're talking about it in the context of actual historical fact and representation of historical facts, please tell me that's not what you're doing. Thank you again, Drew W. I rewatched Not Another Teen Movie last night. The only thing I remember from that is the naked girl. I wonder why that is.
I may be a woman, Sir William.
Yeah.
But if I choose, I have the heart of a man.
Probably means that she could cut out the heart of any man in the country she wanted and like hold it in her hand, and she couldn't be prosecuted because she's like God's selected representative on earth. I know I'm being literal, but that's just me.
The lessons here are obvious. The image of a strong woman leader, rightly placed at the center of her own narrative.
Rightly placed at the center of her own narrative. Well, where else would she be in her own narrative? We are all at the center of our own narrative. It's that whole own part.
Elizabeth was a protagonist I could project my own ambitions upon. I dared myself to dream bigger. The next semester, I decided to run for the highest position a student on campus could run for.
Hall monitor? Oh, wait, no. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Why couldn't she quote airplane instead? I don't know. I thought we were going to have more trivia. I thought it was going to be a couple more lines or something for me to guess at, but apparently she just wanted to see if people knew about her favorite movie. Okay. The highest position, student body president or president of the Associated Students, something like that.
A seat on the Cornell University Board of Trustees.
Oh, well, okay. That is far higher than I had imagined. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. You mean she saw herself in a character of another race? Johnny? That would be, I don't know. Is that bad? I don't know. Thank you, Drew W. She was the original transgender. Oh, where she could like transubstantiate her heart into that of a man. I guess, or even Elizabeth back then, or I should say the person writing the script for Elizabeth, because who knows if she ever actually said those words, made a distinction between the heart of a woman and the heart of a man. Is that it? Are we admitting that there's a gender binary in there somewhere?
It was a grueling campaign.
Yeah.
But I won.
Okay, congratulations. Yay! Yay! Congratulations. Sure.
I love talking to my friends about the film that impacted them. The film that changed the way they see the world.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, that would have been, gosh, what would it have been? Oh, God, it's so hard to choose. Oh, Hunt for Red October. Yeah. Thank you, Frosted Glass. Mary, I burned Protestants at the stake. Strong woman. Women. No, I mean, we don't talk about that stuff. She's a strong, independent woman that don't need no man. And everything that she did was great. And her portrayal was very empowering and inspiring. I'm willing to extend the benefit of the doubt in the sense that she was inspired by the character as portrayed in the film. And we're not talking about the historical figure and taking everything in of what she did or how she was, etc. That's fine. If you take inspiration from a fictional character, even one that is historically sugar-coated, okay. But she said she was a historian. So I'm very curious if at any point in this, she's going to address the disparity between the portrayal in the film and historical fact. It's a bizarre thing for me to be waiting for, but then I don't know where we're going with this.
And whether they are a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, they can always name at least one. And then I like to ask that doctor, lawyer, or engineer.
Doctor, lawyer, or engineer? Why those specific occupations?
To take a moment and imagine that film never existing.
Okay. Why? Okay, I'm going to circle gratuitous pausing for effect. I know she's looking down at her cue cards, but I'm already seeing indications that it's going to happen again, and I can't give somebody a pass all the time just for cue cards. So gratuitous pausing for effect is circled. Free space is circled. Plays victim, not yet. Feminism, no. School to prison pipeline, no. Childhood or family anecdote. Watching the movie in college doesn't make a childhood or family anecdote, but it's an anecdote from her past that is informing the talk. So I'm going to circle that one too. Microaggressions, no. Systemic, no. Takes credit, no. Attempt to coin new buzzword, no, not yet. Equity, no. Rape culture, no. Toxic, no. Anecdote that probably never happened. She's talking in such abstractions right now that I can't circle that one. Leaves out vital context, not yet. Should not be in current occupation or position. Nothing that says to me that. Marginalization, no. White supremacy privilege, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. Not yet. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. Benevolent condescension, no. Word salad, no. A list, no. I always want to say a list. Like it's the A list, but no, it's a list. Cultural appropriation. Maybe with the Chinese food? I don't know. We'll find out. Thank you, Picala Driving 8-Man. Historian. Is she going to say Liz was black? I don't know. Given the title of the talk, I don't know where we're going with this. But okay, so imagine that your favorite movie never existed. That is a trick of imagination, but okay, The Hunt for Red October was never made.
I sometimes wonder if story, as seen through film, will outpace story read in books.
No. And I'll tell you why in a second. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Have to go back to work. Have a great day, Scribe. Thank you, Chicago Mike. You have a good day, too. Movies will not outpace books. Movies, and I'm talking about like your average cinematic 90-minute to 2-hour film. The depth of character, the internal monologues, the amount of detail, the breadth and expanse that a book can cover of characterization and events will always surpass a film. Now, films and books vary in quality, of course, person to person, author to author. And you might have a really excellent film that comes from a relatively mediocre book. That can happen. Or you can have a really crappy film coming from an excellent book. That happens all the time. But the amount of mileage you can get out of the written word versus what is just portrayed in images on a screen, I don't think will ever be entirely surpassed. Now, truth be told, there's a lot you can do in images and visual media with implication and emotion and acting and such that really can't be fully expressed on the page sometimes. But that comes down to the cinematographer, how someone frames a shot, and most importantly, the performance of the actor. But the one thing about film that it doesn't have in regards to books is that it doesn't allow for interpretation so much. I mean, being an English major, I went through more than my fair share of literature analysis classes. And if you sit in a literature analysis class and you listen to, you have your students read the Scarlet Letter or something, then you bring them back in and say, okay, tell me what happened in this chapter. Now tell me why this person did that thing. There's so many various interpretations of motive, of what the author was trying to say, and so on. I'm not saying that doesn't happen in film, but what's happening in film is very static. You get only what's there. In a book, you can have a lot of implication, a lot of things that are left to the imagination. In film, it's like, well, you got only what they gave you. You only have what the screenwriter allowed. And again, that's not to say you can't have a film that leaves ambiguities or room for interpretation. I just think that books provide a wider playing field for the imagination to, well, play in, if you know what I mean. So that's why I think films will never exactly surpass books. But that doesn't invalidate films. They're their own thing. So anyway, I could go on, but why bother?
We live in an increasingly visual world
Mm-hmm.
where images resonate more deeply and travel more quickly than words.
I don't know. I'm on Twitter far too often, more than I should be, and they travel pretty quick.
Surely I had studied Elizabeth I in high school, but to see her portrayed on screen had a completely different effect on me.
And you did make you did make a distinction. Boy, the pepper jack's hit me already. You did make a distinction between the historical figure of Elizabeth and the fictional portrayal. Yes, please tell me that you're separating those two out.
I'd say the same about watching actors like Florence Delay in Bresson's Joan of Arc or Daniel Day-Lewis and Spielberg's Lincoln. Again, I studied both.
Uh-huh.
But to see their performances on screen felt transcendent.
Okay.
Every year, without fail,
Yes.
and with an almost relentless frequency,
Yes.
the West, and when I say the West, I'm primarily referring to Hollywood and large swaths of Western Europe.
Uh-huh. Are we finally getting into whatever she's talking about?
Puts its historical narratives on screen. Narratives that further reify these figures and their lives in our consciousness.
Yeah.
These figures become larger than life.
I hate to tell you this, but historical figures, the ones that are famous, they already were larger than life because their lifetime, their story, their significance in history far outweighs anyone else in their era for the most part. So Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth, was already larger than life before the movie Elizabeth came out. But maybe that's just me.
So large, in fact, that they loom the world over.
It's a movie. I mean, it might have been a good movie. It might have been an entertaining movie, but it's a movie. And it's still a fictional portrayal.
Since the dawn of cinema, we literally have thousands of depictions of life in antiquity.
Yeah.
The British monarchy.
Yeah.
The American Civil War.
Yeah.
Multiple tellings of Western triumphs across World War I and World War II.
Yeah.
Through cinema,
Yeah.
the West has established a hegemony.
Oh. So is this going to be about history is written by the victors kind of thing?
Western culture is the default lens through which we all see ourselves.
Is it? Is it really? We all see ourselves through the default lens of Western culture? Because of movies. Okay.
Okay. So here's another quote.
Okay. More trivia. All right. Give me another quote. Okay. I'm looking down on my keyboard. I'm not looking at chat in case. Well, I mean, I'm ahead of chat because of the timing of this, but all the same. Okay.
My daughter said she wanted to answer the call. And I was at home when I learned that she was shot. Anyone?
I don't know. She mentioned the Civil War. She mentioned World War II. I don't know if I can guess a genre, but I'll say that, I suppose. That's sort of like betting on red on the roulette without betting on a number. But I'll look to the chat. Anybody have any? Let's see. Not a clue. Yeah, I have no idea. Okay. Thrashy says Django Unchained. That one served Satania says not significant enough. Is she talking about the Alf TV movie? Oh, you mean where Alf was like captured by the government and was going to be dissected? That one?
What?
Oh, Puttock says Glory. All right.
So this was a trick. This line has never been uttered in any film.
What was the point of that then? Please do tell. Okay, and that's funny. All right. I guess London has a different sense of humor than I do. Isn't that surprising?
In fact, this line comes from the official record of a testimony given by the mother of Ariaha Okonya, a freedom fighter who died in the Women's War of 1929.
The Women's War of 1929. Okay. Is this going to be some grand sales pitch to get people to invest in a film about her pet project historical event? I don't know. Thank you, Drew W. Only 1 billion people watch Bollywood. Yeah, exactly. Western culture is all that anyone pays attention to. Never mind weebs like Satsu.
The call Ariaha refers to is the call of Wanyarua, the woman who ignited the war.
Okay, I'm not a history major. I don't know what war this is or where it took place. Please do edify me.
The Women's War of 1929 was one of the largest organized rebellions against British colonial presence on the continent.
Which continent?
It was a war organized, led, and fought by women.
What women?
10,000 women marched from Owerri and Calabar provinces in the southeastern region of Nigeria.
Nigeria is a country, not a continent. I mean, I suppose if it was the largest such on the continent, okay, but 10,000 people in the whole of Nigeria? Were they all women? Okay.
An area spanning 16,000 kilometers with a population of around 2 million people.
10,000, 2 million. Okay.
They fought and died to assert power in the face of their disenfranchisement.
And everybody who died was a woman?
This was Nigeria's Handmaid's Tale.
Oh. It was 100% women. All 10,000 were women. I mean, you're not saying otherwise, so I guess I'll just have to take your word for it.
In the almost 2 decades leading up to the Women's War of 1929, women of the region saw their businesses decimated as the British cut prices for their goods.
There were no male-run businesses decimated then?
Women were fined and jailed for gathering in public.
Men were not fined and jailed for gathering in public?
For dancing, for being seen before or even after a certain hour.
Is that true just for women? You'll note my skeptical tone in my questions because I'm just curious.
Women were assaulted, dragged into the bush, and raped.
Okay, I don't disbelieve that.
The British decreed to the Nigerian woman, "You are to be unseen and unheard."
Imagine that, in that era, in that country, under that regime. Okay.
Now, I am a Nigerian woman.
You are? Okay.
An Igbo woman from Anambra State.
Okay. Are you from 1929?
I know there are Nigerians in this audience, and so something tells me, and maybe it's from watching my grandmother, my mother, my aunts and great aunts, that our wiring in the early 1900s probably matched our present day disposition.
Is that taking credit for something in her own demographic? It's awfully close. But she's from Nigeria. She's completely, if she had an accent, she's completely lost it.
And that's because even then, the Nigerian woman was a vocal, visible, and public actor. A concept that clashed with British ideals of patriarchy and...
Oh, patriarchy. Patriarchy. Circled that one.
Proper Victorian norms.
Yeah, I'm sure at that time, anybody who stood up against the British Empire was a rebel by all definition. Whether you were a Nigerian woman or a Indian man or somebody on the street. I assume it's probably so.
In pre-colonial times, Nigerian women of the southeastern region shared power with men.
Why would they do that?
And governed over areas of society. They held titles and ruled over their own councils.
Wow. Okay, so Nigeria was very progressive, according to you. All right.
They adjudicated in courts.
Uh-huh.
They lorded over the economic health of their communities.
Lorded over? That's usually a negative connotation, but okay.
There was gallantry and grace in their dance and traditions. They didn't wear suffocating corsets and heavy balloon skirts.
Because they're two completely different cultures and honestly two completely different environmental climates, but okay. Is that bad? So now the clothes of the British Empire at the time are something to be disparaged all by themselves?
Their bodies were loosely covered, their heads elegantly crowned and waists adorned.
Okay. And no one in British society... Okay, I'm losing the plot, obviously. Thank you, Cryptic. Since we are claiming stuff from the past, can they also claim being part of the slave trade? Cryptic, stop it. Stop it. We're not talking about historical facts. We're talking about an idealized interpretation of historical facts. You heard her talk about Elizabeth. This is the lens she sees the world through.
Their movement was unrestricted.
Okay. Is that a virtue then? Non-restrictive clothing is inherently a good thing?
So when an officer on colonial duty.
Back in 1920-something,
entered Wanyarua's compound to count her in order to collect tax.
Yeah, which obviously he did not do against any men, only women in this telling. And honestly, I don't know. Is that true? Are only women the victims of British, I don't know, oversight at this place and at that time? I'd be curious to know.
She was having none of it.
Oh, well.
How do you collect tax on nothing when you have already stripped everything?
Well, that is a good question. So what happened?
As the officer stood before her, a man young enough to be her son, speaking to her as if she was his child, he became the embodiment of years of oppression.
Yeah.
The dissolution of her culture.
Okay.
Of her Nigeria.
Right.
She resisted.
Okay. How did she do that?
The man lunged forward and grabbed her by the throat and choked her.
Oh.
A wave of volcanic fury came over Nwanyarua.
Okay.
And she choked him back.
Okay.
The officer was shocked by the strength of the woman and he fled her compound.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wanyaruwa, breathing heavily, soon collected herself and ran to alert the other woman. It has happened, oh! The news spread like wildfire. Using the palm frond as their signal, the women readied for war.
And there were no men involved in this at all. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the story as is being told by the historian here. Okay.
The greatest and bloodiest battle of the war occurred almost 90 years ago to this day.
Yeah, we're talking about information and events and cultures and laws and everything that are practically antique, wouldn't you say?
The fighters valiantly marched forward.
Yes.
Armed only with pistols used daily to pound yam.
Really? That's an interesting image. Okay. 10,000 pestle-wielding women. Okay.
The British were not prepared to deal with a group of women taking such planned strategic action. And so overwhelmed as they were, they raised their rifles and shot at them.
So they were prepared. Guns at a pestle fight. Okay.
Chasing women into the river as they plunged to their death.
Yeah, it's that is kind of what happens when you bring a pestle to a gunfight. Yeah.
The British killed hundreds of women that day.
And no men. Okay.
As tragic as this was, the war had positive outcomes.
Okay.
Although they did not leave.
Yeah.
The British conceded to many of the demands of the women, and by 1933, there were areas of increased self-governance.
Okay. I'm still... What does this have to do with cinema again?
And still, by staging such a major rebellion against the British presence in Africa, these women who fought and died for their nation demonstrated to an entire continent that independence was possible.
And only women ever did this, you say? I just want to make sure I understand. No men died. No men put their lives on the line. No men fought for independence in Nigeria against the British Empire. I just want to make sure I understand what our historian is telling us. Okay.
Now you tell me. Why is that not a story told with relentless frequency on screen?
Okay. I was kind of kidding before, but I'm not sure this isn't a sales pitch, or I should say a pitch for investment into a cinematic project of her favorite pet historical event. Why isn't it? I don't know. How many studios have you shopped the script to? I mean, you seem to be really, really excited about telling this story, so presumably you have a script, a screenplay, some kind of treatment that you're willing to shop around to studios to look for investment or go to the effort as a producer or a writer or a filmmaker, right? Or are you just waiting for someone else to do that for you? Thank you, Drew W. No wonder why Jesse hired Nigerian men. They weak. Jesse? Who's Jesse? There's a lot of Jessies in the world. I wish that I had Jesse's girl. Dun, dun, da, 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 da. Jesse's girl. Anyway. Are you waiting for the audience to tell you that they'll fund your project? Or what? I mean, again, I'm not a historian, but the Woman's War of 1929 sounds like a fairly obscure historical event. And that's not to say that there haven't been movies made about fairly obscure historical events, but if you want a movie made about your favorite obscure historical event, complaining that there isn't a movie about it isn't going to make it happen.
I will forever cherish the film Elizabeth. And yet to learn years later that I had my own heroines in my own likeness, floored me.
Really? Really? I mean, there were no role models, there were no heroes you possessed in your childhood prior to Elizabeth that you could be inspired by? Really? None at all? Or are you just talking about on screen? Because as we know, there have been no strong, independent, and or powerful Black women depicted on screen in the entirety of movie history. And also, given the fact that Elizabeth was the monarch over the very empire that actually put down the Woman's War of 1929, do you feel good revering a character that kind of set the tone for the force that would attack and kill your ancestors and countrymen, or sorry, countrywomen? I don't know if she'll address that either. Professor Chaos, thank you. Scribe, he means Subway Jesse and his friends. Subway Jesse? Subway Jesse. When I think Subway, the only character I think of Subway is like, Jared, that monster. Subway, I don't know. Who's Subway Jesse? I don't know. And thank you, Drew W. What about Black Panther? That's about Africa. Oh, Subway Jussie. Oh, Jussie. Oh, okay. When I saw Jesse, sorry. Apologies, Drew. Well, I mean, I think it was an honest mistake, but okay. No wonder why Jesse hired Nigerian. I think Jesse just hired who was cheapest amongst him, or more willing to do something stupid for some money, presumably. But anyway, sorry about that. That was. You'll forgive me if I misunderstood.
While it's lovely to imagine myself here in England,
you don't have to imagine. You are in England.
How much lovelier to imagine myself in the country of my own birth.
Well, unless there's something stopping you, you could just travel there?
With these women, where there was an actual square peg fits square hole space.
What?
For me in the narrative.
What? Wait. What? You want to travel back to 1929 Africa under British occupation to fight against the British Empire? What?
If multiple portrayals of such an image existed, I wonder how Nigeria would be different.
Okay.
How would Africa be different?
Because of a movie?
Would we recognize that patriarchy should be counted as one of these diseases introduced by our colonizer?
Hey, speaker, I hate to tell you this, and I know this might come as a shock. You know that movie you revere so much? What was it called again? Oh, yeah, Elizabeth. You know, Queen Elizabeth, monarch of the British Empire. Tell me again about patriarchy.
And finally, 3 men from the confines of toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity? Oh boy, toxic. All right, free men from the confines of toxic masculinity. If only men could be freed from the confines of toxic masculinity with which all men possess, because, you know, they can't change their nature and they're all inherently flawed. Yes, if only. What will save us from our toxic masculinity? Could it be a female monarch?
And restore women's place to society.
Women's place in... Okay, what is women's place in society? In the modern day, what is women's place in society? Not 1929 British occupied Nigeria, but what is women's place today?
Would we understand that we have always been feminist?
Feminism. Circling that one. We have always been feminist, even when a queen was controlling the British Empire? Okay.
Until an outsider told us we were wrong.
What? So wait, are you talking about Nigeria? Nigeria is a matriarchy? I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't mean this facetiously. I do not know what the culture of Nigeria is like. I don't know what their practices are like. I don't know what their history is like. I don't know. Is Nigeria, classically speaking, a matriarchy? Okay, and what does that have to do with everybody else again? Thank you, Mikhail, the Driving Ape Man. I think it is safe to assume women never saw Zulu, or this woman never saw Zulu. I think I only saw Zulu once many years ago, and I'm challenged to remember it. Michael Caine was in that, right? I mean, it is just a movie, after all.
When I look at present-day Nigeria, a country brimming with so much potential but burdened with so much strife, could the relentless retelling of this story awaken something in our people that we stand up selflessly and not selfishly and shout, enough?
I don't know. And neither do you. And we will never know. Unless you get that movie made, I guess.
How would the world be different? Surely if I can see myself in Elizabeth.
You can see yourself in the female monarch of the British Empire that would go on to oppress your people in Nigeria. Got it.
Many more can see themselves in these women.
Then submit a screenplay to studios. If you're expecting people to just do the work for you on this one, you're going to have a bad time. So by the end of this, I really do hope you tell us that you have a screenplay ready and you just need a studio to greenlight it. Right?
What if women fighting for equality in the Americas, the UK, and across Europe could look to these role models in Nigeria who led societies as they now aspire to?
Yes, because there are no films in existence of women seeking equality or fighting for their rights already. Now, admittedly, I don't know how many films there are about that subject matter that take place in Africa or various countries therein, but
now, I'm not saying that films alone can change the world.
Yes, you are. No. What would the world be like if they could see blah, blah? You just, come on. You just said that. You just went on and on about what would the world be like if this movie existed, implying that a film alone would change the course of history. You don't get to walk that back all of a sudden. Come on.
But I'm of the school of thought that great cinema begins as conversation with its audience.
What?
And each audience member decides his or her own response.
Okay. Thank you, John Miller. The drooling eyeball in different direction face. Yeah, that's kind of where I went just then. Like, what are... Oh my gosh. And thank you, Frosted Glass. Lots of Nigerian princess that could fund the movie. Princes. Yes, the princes. Oh boy. I don't know where we're going, guys. I really don't. She's complaining there aren't enough movies about the very specific historical event that she's obsessed by. And she wonders, what would Nigeria look like if such a film was out there? But I'm not saying that films alone will change the world. Okay, then what are you saying?
Whether to shrug, to think differently, or to act.
Yeah.
It pains me to say it.
Okay.
But we are still a colonized people.
What do you mean, we?
The woman who fought the Women's War of 1929 fought to preserve our culture, our way of life, our identity as a people.
Okay, so you're talking about Nigeria, specifically Nigeria. Okay, I don't know where you're at or where you're coming from. You got to be more specific, but okay. You're concerned about the culture, the history, and the people of Nigeria. Okay.
The lack of investment in our storytellers is a failure of that legacy.
So you're looking for investors, right?
What worries me most is not the oil and the minerals being extracted daily from the continent of Africa.
The continent of Africa. So we're not talking just about Nigeria now. We're talking about the whole of Africa? And correct me if I'm wrong, there are a lot of different and varied cultures across the countries in Africa. There's not one unifying culture in Africa, the continent.
But the further extraction of our self-worth and the denial of self-actualization by not seeing our stories on screen.
Okay, I just paused this here, but there's a weird... If you can see it, there's like superimposed on her hand. So there's a cut here. That was lucky on my part. Something was cut out of this video and overlaid and faded into the next part. Now, that wasn't me, just for reference. So if there's something missing from this, it wasn't me that did it. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat. Wait, if you're telling me that Elizabeth was fictionalized, then does that mean Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is fictionalized too? Johnny, I hate to tell you this, but it's totally real. Yeah, I'm going to back up a second because I don't want to lose my train of thought right then, because I just got caught by the fact that I stopped right on this weird visual cut.
And our storytellers is a failure of that legacy.
Right, okay.
What worries me most is not the oil and the minerals being extracted daily from the continent of Africa,
which none of the independent nations of Africa are in control of course, and aren't profiting off of course.
But the further extraction of our self-worth and the denial of self-actualization by not seeing our stories on screen. We live in a distorted reality.
Okay. So there aren't enough movies about Africa or African history in existence. So you're looking for people to invest in your film, or you're looking for people to invest in your movie studio, or otherwise you're just sort of complaining into the ether. And again, I do not know the entire ins and outs of every government, every revenue stream in Africa. But at this point, are they not sovereign? Even if they're ridiculously corrupt, depending on which country you're talking about, are they not in charge of their own resources and their own destiny as nations? I'm obviously missing something. Thank you, Toxic Nightshade. Just stopped in to say hi. Hiya. Sorry to interrupt you. Are you sorry, though? Everybody takes so much pleasure in interrupting me. So I don't know. Nightshade. I think maybe you enjoy it.
Of self-actualization.
Right.
By not seeing our stories on screen.
Okay, if that's all it takes to engender self-actualization in the peoples of Africa, a movie, that's it? And you said earlier that movies weren't going to change the world all by themselves, so what are we talking about?
We live in a distorted reality.
Do we? And who's distorting it, might I ask?
Where the vast majority of the films we watch come from the West.
Oh, okay. So you're anti-West cinema then.
The rest of us are not an underrepresented minorities, but an underrepresented majority.
So there is no film industry in Africa at all. I just want to make sure I understand. There is no film industry in all of Africa. Okay.
Streaming platforms are making content more available than ever before.
Uh-huh.
With distribution increasingly democratized, films and series now barrel into the palm of our hand at an unprecedented pace.
They're not democratized. They are not democratized. They are controlled by production studios. They are corporations. There are lots of independent filmmakers out there, certainly. But those independent films don't see the light of day on any streaming platform without corporate sponsorship and corporate distribution. It's not democratized. But seriously, if you have an idea for a project telling a historical story about the subject that you're interested in, there are plenty of studios out there and streaming platforms that are open to stories like that. I mean, Netflix has a whole project internally called Strong Black Lead. I don't see why you couldn't pitch this to them, either as a series or as a Netflix original. So, okay, it's not democratized, but your options aren't nearly as closed off as you say they are or seem to indicate. So thank you, Drew W. Movie idea, story of Boko Haram or Hotel Rwanda. Well, there already was a Hotel Rwanda movie. Don Cheadle starred in it. You didn't see Hotel Rwanda? I mean, it's not a very happy story, but it's a pretty good movie. So,
should we continue to choose to sit this out, then we are allowing a more pernicious form of colonization to continue to not only exist in practice, but to grow in power.
Okay, for the sake of argument, I'll just stipulate to whatever that was, and I'm about to circle word salad on that one. What are you, the speaker, doing about it? You personally. What screenplay have you either written or commissioned? What effort are you making to get your film idea produced? I mean, for all I know, our speaker is the head of a production studio all of her own. I mean, maybe that's the case. I don't know. She hasn't said. I'm circling word salad because that was all sort of pablum gobbledygook.
The colonization of culture.
Uh-huh.
I recently left my position as a director of international films for...
You're a director of international films. Sorry, I'm going to back up a bit because I did cut her off. I was just kind of surprised by that. Because if anybody should know how to get a film produced, you would think it was someone as a director of international films.
I recently left my position as a director of international films for Netflix.
Oh! You left your position at Netflix? Netflix, who has the Strong Black Lead initiative? I'm honestly surprised. I would have thought of all the places, all the streaming platforms that would give you a complete green light on such things. Okay. Thank you, John Miller. Is this another one of those Hollywood movies are not the norm kind of moments? Well, she's saying so, or they shouldn't be the norm. The westernized Hollywood shouldn't be the norm. And she did just leave Netflix, which is a westernized company. So I guess maybe she's practicing what she preaches. Okay, you left your job as director of international films at Netflix. You are in a position of power in one of the most prolific film generation, TV / online series generation companies on the planet. And you were doing international films, like films that would be either from or taking place in Africa. And you left that job. Okay, that's... Why? If you were in such a position as to make the kind of movies you want to see, or at least have influence over them, why did you leave?
A position I held for about 6 years.
6 years? Why?
While there, I crisscrossed the globe, building up a business specifically dedicated to elevating storytelling that did not come from Hollywood, but from film ecosystems across the world.
Okay. And honestly, guys, I'm like, this is breaking my brain. Everything she's talked about to this point, and yet at some time in the recent past, for 6 years, she was in probably the most powerful position to influence the very things she says she wants to see, and she gave up that job. I am honestly dying to know why she did that. I hope she tells us.
Especially Africa.
Okay.
It's a legacy I'm very proud of.
But
this side of the business grew because with each film I greenlit into production or acquired, I saw that audience demand for a good story was increasingly agnostic as to what country the story originated.
Oh, so viewers are not that discriminatory so long as the material is good, you say. Huh. Imagine that. And why couldn't you find somebody willing to write a screenplay for this historical event or Nigerian history? I'm losing it, guys.
I can say with authority,
yeah,
the demand for our stories is there. It's just up to us to work on bettering the quality of the supply.
Wasn't that your job at Netflix for 6 years? Why did you leave? That's an applause line? Okay. If she doesn't explain why she left Netflix or what she's doing in alternative to being in that position in Netflix, I'm circling leaves out vital context.
I mentioned my doctor, lawyer, and engineer friends earlier.
Yes, you did. And that went nowhere. So is that going somewhere?
And this was highly intentional.
Really? Really? Mentioning your doctor, lawyer, and engineer friends in a scripted TEDx talk was intentional. I'm amazed.
Many Africans here will relate to the experience of growing up and understanding that these are the oft-celebrated professions.
Those are oft-celebrated professions in America as well. It's got nothing to do with continental divide.
Art is often seen in the realm of leisure.
Yeah. It depends on what kind of art you're talking about and or how successful you are, but okay.
I myself am the daughter of a doctor and engineer.
Oh, okay. And?
But before their present careers, my mother was an actress and my father was a musician.
Okay. And?
This outlook of what constitutes serious enterprise extends outside of the home and into the public sphere.
The public sphere?
Where we have governments and captains of industry that barely support cinema.
Oh, so you're seeking funding. I'm backing up a little bit because I cut her off, but you're seeking funding for your kind of cinema after you left a position that had enormous control over what kind of cinema gets out to the globe. And I mean, I don't immediately denigrate anyone who is, quote unquote, an actor or actress or is a musician as simply doing it as leisure. I mean, it really depends on what the person is doing, what their goals are, what their passion is. If someone's acting for a living or a musician for a living and really dedicating their time and life to it, I don't see that as frivolous, at least not in the effort. I mean, depending on the quality or success of their efforts, you could judge whether it was worth their time or not. But personally, I don't see it as immediately like something like, oh, well, he's just a musician or they're just an actor or something. Like, I think it's kind of cool for the most part. Anyway, that's just me.
Governments and captains of industry that barely support cinema, let alone the arts.
And Netflix is not an industry. Cinema is not an industry. The person you worked for at Netflix was not a captain of industry in producing movies, which are themselves an industry. What are you? Oh my God.
Our terribly low theater per capita ratio is just one indicator of this.
What?
But filmmaking is serious enterprise.
Yes.
It's been the primary marketing engine of the West for over a century.
Cinema is the primary marketing engine of the West. So print media, it doesn't rate. Okay. Thank you, John Miller. Sounds like she is unhappy she had a privileged life. I don't know where she's coming from or where she's going with this.
Gene Kelly tap danced into rooms long before Jeff Bezos walked into them.
What? 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 Are we doing 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or something? Gene Kelly to Jeff Bezos? I'm going to play that part again. What are you talking about?
But filmmaking is serious enterprise.
Yes.
It's been the primary marketing engine of the West for over a century.
No, it hasn't been. Print media has been the primary marketing engine of the West. Print media in the whole of the last century? Print media.
Gene Kelly tap danced into rooms long before Jeff Bezos walked into them.
I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. I am trying really, really hard, guys. Really, really hard to understand what the heck I just heard. But I have no idea.
It's baffling that we refuse to see the power of this medium while we curiously remain beholden to it.
We don't understand the power of the moving image. We don't understand the power of the moving image. Never mind the news coverage during Vietnam. Never mind Tiananmen Square. Never mind 9/11. Never mind any of these things. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We just don't understand the power of the moving image, guys. We don't. We don't understand the power of Schindler's List. We don't understand the power of The Godfather. We don't understand the power of 12 Years a Slave. We don't understand the power of these things, guys. If only we understood the power of cinema.
And even afraid of it.
Oh, I'm terrified. I'm terrified of the theater, guys. I'm terrified of... Actually, I really don't want to watch Titanic. I've never actually watched all of Titanic. I actually kind of scared of sitting down and trying to watch that thing. I think it's a phobia. Maybe it's aquaphobia or Leophobia.
There are governments on our continent that censor films and imprison filmmakers.
There are. It's true. Yeah. You know, having a Bill of Rights, having a freedom of speech sort of written into the law and stuff, it's really a great thing. If only more countries would do that and enforce that, it'd be great.
All while using this art form and weaponizing it for their own ends.
Sure, if you have a totalitarian regime who produces propaganda films to prop up their own power, yeah, that is... that's not a good thing. I completely agree.
The relegation of our creative economy presents a real danger to our future as a continent.
We're still talking about Africa, right? Not Nigeria, but Africa, the continent. Right?
A friend of mine was in Havana, and emblazoned on the walls of a film school there is the phrase, "Un país sin imagen que no existe."
In Havana, Cuba? A friend of yours was in Cuba at a film school. I mean, unless there's another Havana. I'm sure there must be another Havana out there, but the first and foremost Havana I think of is Cuba. So are we talking about Cuba? Are we talking about Nigeria? Are we talking about somewhere in the continent of Africa?
This translates to a country without the moving image is a country that does not exist.
And Africa and the various nations within it have no film industry, have no moving images.
I am now a filmmaker.
Oh, okay. So you've got a spec script for your women's war movie, right?
And will walk this talk because I want to see our history on screen.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's what you're doing, if that's what you're working for, hey, credit where credit is due. I mean, I was being a little jokey earlier about like, why are you complaining about stuff? Why aren't you doing something? Well, if you're actually doing something, okay. You know, and maybe no studio's picked up her spec script yet. I don't know. I'd be curious to find out if that's her major project that she's working on. I'm also curious to know why she left her position at Netflix and why during her time at Netflix, she wasn't looking for that specific project to greenlight. Because if I was in that position and that was my goal, I sure as heck would do it, especially if I was director of international films. That seems like the perfect place for her. But anyway, thank you, Drew W. Aquaphobia from someone who loves Red October. Hey now, if you'll pay attention to the making of Hunt for Red October, most of the submarine scenes were actually filmed in dark, dusty spaces, simulating water, but not actually underwater. Now, for the exterior shots of the submarine and other such things, it's fine. But then also, I'm watching a movie, not participating. So if I do have aquaphobia, which as far as I know I don't, I can easily insulate myself from fiction versus reality. Thank you, Drew W., for this psychological side note.
It is a huge task and a lot of ground to cover, and myself and the army of filmmakers on the continent across the diaspora cannot do it alone.
Yeah, you need studio backing most times. You need studio money to make movies because movies are not an inexpensive endeavor. And you left Netflix as director of international films to become a filmmaker. Again, I am very curious to know why she left her job if that was her goal.
But let me be clear.
Oh, please do, because this entire thing has been just opaque so far.
This is not a call to the West, but a call to us as a people.
Isn't it? Isn't it, though?
A call for us to finally shake the last vestiges of colonization and own our narrative.
There is no film industry in Africa, is what you are saying. Okay, how do you shake off the last vestiges of colonization? Where is the money coming from? Because ultimately, the films don't get made without money, without backing, without investment. So are you asking for African investment? You want African money put into African films? There's nothing wrong with that, but you need to be more specific because so far I'm just guessing.
Our vault of stories is massive, full of queens, kings, warriors, vast gilded kingdoms.
Yeah, and you left your job as director of international films at Netflix to become a filmmaker. That one still boggles me.
Not to mention our oral histories and libraries of work from our own authors waiting to be shown on screen.
And there are no films about African leaders or African history or anything else that you could be idolizing instead of Queen Elizabeth, you know, the head of the patriarchy.
Our films are our truth.
And our films are our truth. I guess that all depends on how historically accurate they are. Otherwise, if your films are your truth, but your films are slanted in a particular way, your films are just propaganda. But I digress.
Truth. And I don't believe that one country's stories is more important than the other one.
Really? Because you seem to put a whole lot of weight on the 1929 Women's War in Nigeria over anything else that might have occurred in Nigeria.
I believe it's the making of the story that gives it importance. Thank you.
What are you talking about? I'm still stuck on Gene Kelly and Jeff Bezos, honestly. Thank you, Drew W. I think she wants her people to write more scripts. Well, again, you would think somebody who's in the position of director of international films at Netflix, if that person had a specific interest in films about the stories or history of Nigeria in specific, but Africa at large, she could find those things. She could find projects to work on and greenlight. And hell, she could probably put a bug in someone's ear like, hey, if you wrote a really good script about the Women's War of 1929 in Nigeria, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I might find a reason to greenlight that. And yet she dropped that job for reasons never explained. And I'm really curious to know why. And now she's a quote unquote filmmaker. I'm not quite sure what that means. Is she a producer? Is she a director? Does she own her own production company? She never said, so I don't know what that means. But after 20 some odd minutes of this presentation, I'm not quite sure what decolonizing cinema means to our speaker. If she's talking about the film industry of places other than Hollywood should be given more or equal attention or funding as Hollywood, well, I hate to tell you this, but it comes down to the marketplace. Who's willing to pay for what? Where does the money come from? Is there a market for the product? I mean, you worked as director of international films at Netflix. This is, I would hope, not a set of mechanisms you're unfamiliar with. So I don't know. I don't know what the film industry in Africa is like, or in Nigeria specifically is like. I have no idea. So is she living in Nigeria trying to make films? She says she's a filmmaker, but she didn't go into any more detail about what effort she's putting forth to achieve the goals she wants. I don't know. Let's go over the bingo card before I completely lose my mind. Plays victim. She never told a story or something where she was somehow in the, the lower position of the situation. Nothing that she said sounded like she was making herself a victim of anything. Now, do you want to say she herself is playing victim, or she's as a representative claiming victimhood for other people? I'm willing to take arguments on that one. School to prison pipeline, no. Microaggression, no. Systemic, institutional. I'm willing to extrapolate that into the industry, into Western Hollywood, etc. That's more or less in concept what she was talking about. Takes credit for something done by others. I mean, she's like imparting upon herself the strength that she saw in the historical figures of the Women's War and Nigerian people in general. So I'll take that because that's not necessarily ingenuous. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. I didn't hear that. Equity. I don't think I heard that anywhere. Rape culture, no. Toxic. I thought I circled that one. Anyway, toxic, yes. Anecdote that probably never happened. I never heard one of those. Everything sounded like either just her opinion or otherwise, and nothing that sounded like self-aggrandizing. Leaves out vital context. Yep, never explained why she left her job. She brought that up, but she never explained why. Like, what was the reason behind it? Why bother bringing that up? Speaker should not be in current occupation or position. I have no idea what kind of filmmaker she is, what her job is. Saying that she's a quote-unquote filmmaker tells me nothing. Marginalization. I don't remember her saying that. White supremacy privilege. No. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. I mean, if she's talking about a literal historical event called the Women's War, there was a reason for calling it that. So, wage gap, no. Patriarchy, she brought up, obviously. Benevolent condescension. I don't recall anything like that. She never brought up a list. And cultural appropriation, not directly. Not that I can think of. So, anyway, I'll take arguments elsewise. Let's see. And on to you guys. John Miller says, a victim of well-off parents, Scribelight. Kind of. Maybe she was sort of apologetic about that. I don't know. It was not hard, not easy to say. Thrashy, another TEDx that didn't amount to much. Well, you know, it is the luck of the draw. Sometimes you get something, sometimes you don't. The last one, yesterday's, I mean, there was something there. It just wasn't very, I guess, exciting or innovative. Some emulation. She definitely portrayed Nigeria as the victim of the British patriarchy. Okay. Nigeria was a victim of the British Empire and or patriarchy. So that wasn't playing the victim. Nigeria was a victim of empirical or empire occupation. So that's not playing the victim. That they were the victims. Assassin the Grey Scribelight, there were a lot of slaver kingdoms in Africa back when. Yeah, but again, that doesn't make Nigeria not a victim of the British Empire and its occupation. Assassin the Grey, Rescue Scribelight, and Dogcat Fox the Awesome. Dogcat Fox the Awesome? Dogcat Fox has a deed name now? What did Dogcat Fox do to earn that name? I don't know. You tell me. Pincalo, this woman proves that you can, in fact, be a victim of your own privilege. Living embodiment of privilege is on the stage. I mean, she didn't tout it so much. She didn't I don't know. It's difficult to say. She was so all over the place. I don't know. Let's see. Thrashy, to be fair, I'm here for your commenting, Scribe. I don't expect much from any TEDx. Well, I appreciate that. Honestly, I come into these things hoping that if nothing else, I'll be entertained. And I'll tell you, Gene Kelly and Jeff Bezos, I didn't see that one coming. Let's see. Enziker says that's not even on Nigeria's Wikipedia page. The Women's War of 1929. Like I said, I'd never heard about it before. Probably a very obscure event. Let's see. I'm going to just for the sake of the recording, I'm looking up Nigerian Women's War. Okay, Women's War on Wikipedia. The Women's War, or Aba Women's Riots, was a period of unrest in British Nigeria over November 1929. Okay, so it happened within a month's time. Okay, the protests broke out when thousands of Igbo, if I'm saying that correctly, women from the Bende district, Umuahia, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, and other places in eastern Nigeria traveled to the town of Oloko to protest against the warrant chiefs, whom they accused of restricting the role of women in the government. The warrant chiefs. What is a warrant chief? I don't know. The Aba Women's Riots of 1929, as it was named in British colonial records, is more aptly considered a strategically executed anti-colonial revolt organized by women to redress social, political, and economic grievances. The protest encompassed women from 6 ethnic groups, that I'm not going to attempt to mispronounce. It was organized and led by the rural women of Owerri and Calabar provinces. During the events, many warrant chiefs were forced to resign and 16 native courts were attacked, most of which were destroyed as the first major anti-colonial revolt by women in West Africa. Okay. In 1930, the colonial government abolished the system of warrant chieftains and appointed women to the native court system, These reforms were built upon by the African women and have been seen as a prelude to the emergence of mass African anti-colonial nationalism. All right. Well, hey, maybe she was right. I don't know. But okay, you know what? I'll take her at her word. Nothing there said otherwise. So, okay, the Women's Wars of Nigeria of 1929, such as it was called, had a major effect on the nation, its policies, and its leadership. All right. That would be an interesting movie. I mean, depending on how it's executed, but sure, it could be an interesting movie. And it's never been done. It's never been told. You haven't had any opportunity to do so. I guess. Okay. And if you made that movie, if you told a story about Nigeria's past, the past that has already presumably affected its current state in some way, shape, or form through the ages, that would do what? Because again, movies by themselves don't change the world, but you want more movies made about the things you care about. So I don't know. I don't know, guys. So yeah. I'm going to save my bingo card here because I can't see anything else really fitting. Let me get it queued up here. If you guys have anything else you'd like to say or mention or arguments to be made, by all means, put them in the chat now while I get the bingo card loaded up here. I mean, I guess if I got anything from this talk, and that's putting a stretch on it, I had never heard of the Women's War of 1929 in Nigeria before. So in that sense, I did learn something new, which is interesting in and of itself. But insofar as our speaker's argument is concerned, whatever argument she was trying to make, I'm not sure what to do with that. She wants more movies to be made that tell African and specifically Nigerian history. She left a position at a company where she had probably vast powers to see such things done. And I don't know to what extent she either did or didn't. And now she's on a stage in the UK complaining that there aren't enough films about the subjects that she cares about, while practically deifying a film about a white female monarch of the very empire that subjugated her own ancestors. Also, Gene Kelly and Jeff Bezos. So yeah, guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's where I'm going to wrap this up here. So there's the bingo card. I've already gone over time than what I expected, but there you go. Yeah, I don't know. I was hoping for something. I never really got a definition of decolonize, except I guess the film industry should not be centered in Hollywood. Okay, I suppose. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for your attendance, your participation, and your generosity. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys all enjoyed this to whatever extent you could. If you'd like to hear more from me or Ranting Monkey or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find us tonight on Satsu 2 Cents' channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for Lords of the Night, where we'll talk about the news of the day, the stories that you submit, what we've been up to on the intertubes, and then your questions and comments. Again, everyone, I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. I'll probably be doing another TEDx on Saturday, so look forward to that. Until then, talk to you later, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.